In this video, I am going to rank the powers of God from best to worst. But what do I mean by that? Well, you see, I am what is considered a power scaler, which is internet speech for I get no girls. I spent a significant portion of my free time thinking about how powerful fictional characters actually are. And if you think that's a niche field, I, specifically, use my limited time on Earth to try to figure out how powerful are the deities from actual mythology. And by the way, if that kind of content sounds interesting to you, you can find a link in the description of this video to a playlist with all of my videos scaling mythological characters. But anyway, I've power scaled mythology, and one of the things that I've learned power scaling mythology is that mythological gods tend to share certain abilities. And so, because my brain is rotten and I am obsessed with power levels, I asked myself, well, if mythological gods seem to share certain abilities, then out of all of these abilities, which ones would be the strongest and which ones would be the weakest? And originally, that's what this video was going to be about, but I quickly realized that if I made that video, omnipotence was going to be at the top. And then what's the point of watching this video if you can't predict the outcome before the video even starts? So, I decided to change things. In this video, I am going to rank the powers of the gods based on how much I like each specific ability. I am going to approach things from the perspective of a storyteller, but also a power scaler. Basically, if I think that the ability is strong and also the ability can be used to tell interesting stories, then I am going to put that ability higher on the list. Alright, now that you understand what this video is about, we can begin. And I am going to start strong by putting omnipotence right at the bottom. Omnipotence is the laziest power ever. If you are writing a story and you give to one of your characters omnipotence, to me, that just means you could not be bothered giving your character an actually interesting ability. 0 out of 10 to the bottom it goes. Moving on, I would put omniscience and omnipresence slightly higher than omnipotence, because if you give to a character either of these abilities, you could write a slightly more interesting story than if the character was flat out omnipotent. But this is still lazy tier. Moving on to a higher tier, the first power we have is eternal life. Notice that I am not calling it immortality. Many gods in many pantheons claim to be immortal, and yet you can find stories where the gods die. So that's why I'm calling it eternal life. This power is pretty straightforward. You don't die of old age, no matter how much time it passes. It's alright, I guess, but this is barely above lazy tier. Another power that is barely above lazy tier would be resurrection. Not necromancy, by the way. I'm not talking about raising corpses. I'm talking about bringing someone back from the dead like if nothing had happened. Many mythological gods are capable of this. To be honest, I rank it very low because I'm not sure it can be used in a fight. The best I can think of is resurrecting people and then using them as meat shields. Also, one has to wonder, does this power work on the caster? As in, if a god has the power of resurrection and the god is killed, can the god resurrect himself? Because if so, then that's pretty good actually. But even then, I think resurrection remains in this tier. Moving on, we have super strength. Mythological gods are almost always portrayed as being physically stronger than regular humans. But super strength is the vanilla ice cream of superpowers. Don't get me wrong, super strength is not a bad power, and I am not saying that you cannot tell interesting stories with a character whose only ability is being physically really strong. But almost every fictional character has this power. Super strength is really not that unique. And you know what they say? When everyone's super, etc. and so forth. As a power, super strength is more interesting than eternal life, but it's still low tier. Next power, invisibility. Usually, gods can, if they wanted to, become undetectable to humans. Need power, and with some creativity, you can tell a good story with this. But I feel like this power is a one-trick pony. Then again, that might just be my lack of imagination. Okay, last power for this tier, insta-death. With this, you can make it so that someone instantly drops dead. Surprisingly, a lot of well-known popular characters would have a counter to this power. This ability is not as much of an insta-win as it sounds. And also, there is not much room for creativity. There are only so many ways you can instantly kill someone. Moving on to our next tier, next power is being a giant. I know what you're thinking, being a giant is not a superpower. Let me explain. Many gods are described as being gigantic in size, and the bigger you are, the stronger you are. So being a giant is like super strength, but with extra steps, and that's precisely why I rank it higher. You can absolutely tell interesting stories with a character whose main thing is being really tall, but telling those stories will require a bit more effort. If the character is big, the writer will be forced to think about their world. And just because of that, just the fact that the writer is forced to try a little harder with their story, that right there makes being a giant better than just having super strength. Next power, healing. It's pretty common for gods to have the ability to heal others or themselves. Now, healing as a power can obviously be used defensively, but also, with some creativity, it can be used offensively. For example, forcing the cells in someone's body to divide rapidly in order to give that person tumors is one of the multiple ways the power of healing can be used offensively. With this power, you gotta think outside of the box. And speaking of outside of the box, next power is super speed. An uncreative writer will always portray super speed as exclusively the ability to run from point A to point B in a shorter time than a normal person. But super speed is more than just running fast. With super speed, everything about you is faster. Super speed is one of those powers that is mostly constrained by your ability to think outside of the box. Alright, climbing onto a higher tier, the first power here is Elemental Manipulation. This power is self-explanatory and it is a really good Swiss knife. When you can control all of the elements, you can get super creative. There is no way you cannot tell an interesting story with a character that has this power. So, Total Elemental Manipulation, pretty good power in my book. Okay, next would be Precognition, the ability to know the future. It's pretty good. Precognition is omniscience, but without being lazy. This power is not so overwhelmingly strong that it completely ruins any chance at telling a story. Yeah, you can have a character that can see the future, but even with that, the character can still be beaten. You can have them fight someone who is really fast, or someone who is exempt from time. Not to mention, this power could inject some potential drama into your story. What if a character can see the future, but they cannot change it? That's compelling. Alrighty, next power, animation. The ability to make inanimate objects come to life. A god could, for example, animate the world itself, and then the entire planet could fight on behalf of the god. Remember, part of the fun is trying to think outside of the box. Next, disease affliction. It's in the name. This is the ability to give diseases to others. And that already is pretty strong. Having the power to snap your fingers and give someone cancer, that is already pretty powerful. But what if we push things further? What if the character who has this ability is allowed to invent new diseases? Being capable of inventing your own custom diseases, that significantly increases the power level of this ability. And also, I think that a character with this ability would make any story automatically much more interesting. Moving on, we have probably a controversial one. Being really good looking. I know what you're thinking, stop typing that comment, listen to me. In many stories around the world, the gods are described as extremely beautiful. To give you an idea, in Celtic mythology, the gods are so beautiful that when they descended to Earth, they had to shapeshift. Because if they walk around in their true form, any creature that saw them would be overwhelmed and driven mad with desire. Such is the beauty of a god. And that level of beauty can, unironically, be used in a fight. It would require some creativity on behalf of the writer, yes, and that is precisely why I place this ability so high up on the list. Being so good looking that everyone desires you on sight is a super rare and creative power that barely anyone explores. I would love to see more stories expanding this ability. Now we power up further and go to a new tier. The first power here, crafting. This is the ability to make stuff. Many mythological gods are said to be very skilled smiths and sculptors, and they are credited with being capable of fashioning anything they want. The immediate obvious use for this power is making crazy powerful weapons. But when you can craft anything, the limit is your own creativity, and that is why I put it so high. Next power, damage immunity. The gods can, if they so desire, become immune to damage. They can just choose to not get hurt anymore. Obviously, this is a super strong ability. It is an active power though. You have to choose to use the ability. It's not on at all times by default, so that is a weakness. But you can get really nerdy with this, like what counts as damage? How do you define getting hurt? You can have a lot of fun with this. It's a strong ability, you can get really creative with it, and it's kinda rare. You don't see this kind of ability often. Moving on, next is cursing, the ability to inflict curses upon others. What kind of curses? Well, anything you want really. The ability to curse others is pretty powerful and a great equalizer because a character is only immune to curses if they are explicitly stated to be so. For example, let's say there was a character who was immune to damage. The skin of this character literally cannot be pierced. Well, this character can still be cursed into having a normal body, and then you could grab like an umbrella or something and just whack him to death. Cursing powers are carte blanche. You can do anything with this. Okay, next one, matter creation. You can spawn things out of nowhere. This power is ridiculously strong, but if you lower the power level a little bit, you can have a ton of fun with this. Next, life creation, the ability to specifically spawn living creatures. At a high end, you can use this ability to create unbelievably powerful entities. And since the creatures are custom made, you can spawn them being completely loyal and obedient to you. Super strong, obviously, but just like with the last ability, if you lower the power level, this ability will not break your story, and the character that has this ability will seem very imposing. Moving on, we have 3 abilities that you could lump into a single one if you wanted to, but even separated, these are all really strong powers. I'm talking about the ability to control emotions, the ability to control intelligence, and the ability to control decisions. You can force someone to make really bad decisions, you can make them lose the will to fight, and you can straight up make them brain dead. Any of this is too strong, but it's also super rare. You don't often see characters with these types of abilities. Alright, and with that, it's time for the big boys. These are all powers that are somewhat rare, super strong, and just by giving any of these powers to a character in your story, in my opinion, your story becomes 10 times cooler. First, fate manipulation. It's in the name. This is the ability to control fate. Pretty straightforward, but this is a 10 out of 10 in my book. Next, power nullification. The ability to straight up just turn off the powers of other people. This is another solid 10 out of 10. Next power, which is in my opinion way cooler than the other two, power granting, the ability to give powers to others. What kind of powers exactly? Well, if you are the writer, any power you choose really, but if you need any guidance, how about any other power in this list? Next, unbounded transmutation. This is the ability to transform anything into anything else you want. Here are some quick random examples off the top of my head just so that you understand the magnitude of this ability. How about transforming a galaxy into a piece of wet paper? Or transforming a strand of hair into an ocean of gold? Or how about transforming yourself into infinite stars? And why not? Let's get more abstract. How about transforming someone's words or someone's ideas into real physical things? Unbounded transmutation, the ability to transform anything into anything else. This is the God power. Just this power alone would elevate any character and make them seem like a truly insurmountable challenge. Unbounded transmutation is real final boss energy. However, it is not the strongest, because, barring omnipotence, I saved the strongest for last. I am a power scaler after all. At the top of the list, I am going to put concept shenanigans. I'm talking about the ability to manipulate concepts, the ability to destroy concepts, and the ability to create concepts. Suppose there was a being who could freely manipulate the very concept of power. Suppose there was a being who could destroy the very concept of power. Imagine if there was a being who could create the very concept of power. An entity that can do these things should only be called one thing: God. Anything that has to do with messing with concepts in any way, that's monstrously strong. Not even our hero Goku can beat that one, and as we all know, Goku Solo's fiction. A being who has the power to destroy and create concepts would be so powerful, Jiren himself would need to use 1% of his power to effortlessly one-shot that character. That's how strong the power to create and destroy concepts is. And that's it, that's the list. I hope this video helps at least one person. Maybe someone watching this video is running a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, or maybe they are writing a story, and maybe at least one of the things I said in this video gave them some new ideas. And if that's the case, if I helped fuel the creativity of at least one person, then making this video was absolutely worth it. And even if this video does not help any writers out there, then at least just by watching the video, you can now sort of understand just how powerful the average mythological god is. Because the standard run-of-the-mill deity you can find in mythology, they almost always have pretty much all of these abilities. Kinda strong, right? Anyway, that's all I have. My friend, if this video was your introduction to my channel, check out my other videos. Maybe you'll find something you like. To my regular viewers, thank you so much for your constant support. It means the world to me. And regardless of whether you are a regular viewer or this was your first time watching my videos, either way, from the bottom of my heart, I sincerely hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.